Good day to you all. Asaqr is with you, and today in Mobile Hero Wars I'll tell you about a revolutionary hero for engineers, Julius at maximum pumping. Subscribe to my channel, you won't find uninteresting videos here. The long-awaited tank of Path of Progress is finally in our game. However, it can hardly be called a traditional tank in the classical sense, although Julius still has the same basic characteristic of strength, and he is located before Asaqr. At maximum pumping, he has a little more than 455,000 health and 82 armor, which in the current realities for a tank at first glance looks scanty. He has so little armor due to the fact that his items and second artifact are aimed at physical attack and crit, while the rest of the tanks have a book for protection from magic and the same armor. The same goes for the first artifact. The first Julius artifact gives the whole team an effect to increase chance of crit, while the rest of the tanks have this effect on armor. Therefore, if we talk about the fact that he does not need to be pumped, then the situation is as follows. We can definitely say that the first artifact for 5 or even 4 stars is quite enough, but the second artifact with a physical attack, and accordingly it directly affects the performance of our shields, so no matter how much we would like it, it will need to be pumped into absolute like the third artifact, otherwise there are so few of us health. For items, you will also need orange +4 due to same physical attack and health, but in symbols you cannot touch the chance of crit because Julius himself does not actually deal as much damage from his hand as the same warriors or marksmen. By the way, it would be logical to explain the presence of an effect on Cat's crit precisely by the fact that there are a lot of true crit heroes in Progress faction, and adding the same jet, almost half of the heroes from the whole path become crit heroes. Plus, effect from Julius' first artifact hands out crit parameter to those who don't have it, and thus they gain the ability to crit. Accordingly, in attacking crit teams, Julius, for his engineers, thereby only complements the concept of an aggressive composition. But at the same time, Cat cannot be called useless in defense. Now we will figure out why. Let's start with his abilities. You can see their description on screen. Let's focus on them in more detail because they all harmoniously close those previously voiced shortcomings of Julius. First skill puts a shield in front of allies, absorbing all incoming damage, and after its destruction, allies are healed and engineers are treated doubly. Barrier is general and its margin of safety is spent when any ally receives damage. At maximum pumping, strength of shield is slightly more than 162,000, and healing after it is 33,000 respectively. Heroes from Path of Progress, including Julius, will be treated in amount of 66,000. Originality of this ultimate consists in its formula, namely that strength of shield consists of as much as 500% of physical attack of Julius, as well as treatment of 75%. This means that if someone distributes an effect on a physical attack before using his first ability, strength of shield, as well as amount of healing, will indecently increase in their indicators. Let me remind you that already in very Path of Progress, 4 heroes have such an effect from artifact. They are on your screen. For example, with any active effect from first artifact on a physical attack, strength of shield will already be 269,550 and healing will be 49,132. For engineers, treatment will be 98,265. With Asaqr's buff, strength of shield will be 246,780 and treatment will be 45,717, while for engineers it will be 91,434. And when buff from first artifact is combined first and followed by Asaqr's buff, then in total it turns out 380,260 strength and 65,739 heal ordinary heroes and engineers at all 131,478. It's scary to imagine what will happen if Julius is led by an appearance or super skin to a physical attack. And after all, these are calculations without taking into account additional physical damage from second skill with which Cat imposes a shield on himself, also absorbing any damage. And if this shield is not destroyed within 5 seconds, then its remainder is copied to each ally. This ability has a passive side, which just allows Julius to increase his physical attack by 2508 until the end of the battle every time he receives any shield. Its strength is 68,706 units, and this value is also accelerated because 200% of Julius' physical attack is involved in the formula. It is important to note that this shield becomes more difficult to bite through when there are other heroes in team with Julius who have their own abilities with shields. For example, these are heroes such as Judge and Asaqr. No one has talked about this before, but there is a so-called priority of spending shields, which shows that if there are several shields on hero at the same time, one of them is spent first, then the second, third, and so on. So here is the programmed priority of spending shields of each hero on your screen. I calculated it myself, so I think that your 1,000 likes will be compared in terms of total time I spent on this lesson. What does this information give? Given this factor, we understand that the priority set by developers significantly complicates opponents' task of biting through shield with ability of copycat device if the same Judge and Asaqr are in the team with Julius, but this is still without taking into account other heroes with shields from other factions. And we should not forget that this shield is valid for only 5 seconds, and if opponents do not have time to knock it down, then remainder will be transferred to each ally, and so cycle after cycle. By the way, it is also important to note that this shield, like, for example, Fafnir's shield, has a cumulative effect, which means that its safety margin can hypothetically grow indefinitely over course of the battle. But even when shield on Julius or his ally is destroyed, this hero receives a bonus to armor and protection from magic for more than 1 second in amount of 11,806, and all negative effects are removed from him. This is due to his third ability. Value of bonus in it also increases because it consists of 30% of physical attack of Cat. But what is really worth paying attention to is the removal of negative effects. A lot of unpleasant things are being removed. Marks of Satori, Deers, Thea, and Dark Star, Mojo, Ultimate, and sucking energy of Phobos, Georgian's Ultimate, weakening from second skill and burning from third skill of Iris, debuffs Dante from fourth skill, Faceless, and Lilith from third skill, Cornelius, Phobos, and Amira from second skill, and so on. This ability completely reverses idea of Julius as a tank, because he actually crosses out all the previously named characters, making them much weaker in the fight against teams with him. This is due to the fact that if there is at least Judge and Asaqr in the team with Julius, then during the battle every second on someone and shield breaks, and as a result, negative effects are reset. Thus, it is very easy to fight with this trio against teams with Satori, with Iris, with Phobos, with Deers, and so on. Satori's tags are often reset, and he does not release a single fox during the ultimate. Iris does not burn anyone with her flame. Phobos can only grab the opponent's hero for a second with help of third ability and from ultimate, and after a second this effect will be reset. And Deers without watermarks cause significantly less damage, even if they combine their abilities perfectly. By the way, Deers themselves and Julius are successfully fighting against Phobos. Even debuff Amira for crit heroes and her gold are removed. So with the help of a critical team with Julius, you can take even the most protected compositions with Helios and Ziri. It would seem that this is an ideal ability only if the pace of the opponent's team turns out to be faster, and she will have time to knock down all shields before applying negative effects. Then they will work in full. Keep this in mind. Just fourth ability of Julius, which passively increases attack speed and use of skills of all allies on whom the shield acts here as a response to all the opponent's tempo teams trying to simultaneously defend as best as possible and attack as quickly as possible. This is a very good addition because even 10% acceleration and engineers are all 20% already from the very beginning of battle make a tangible impact, especially against such compositions that are deprived of opportunity to increase their damage over the course of the battle, but still against some magical chaotics and with Aiden and Kayla, plus against nature with Mushy and Shroom along with Orion, it's hard for the engineers to fight. With Fafnir teams, things are not so clear with them anymore. Some compositions of Julius, along with Judge, Isaac, Nebula, and Amira, successfully repel both in attack and defense. This happens due to strong shelter of Amira with several shields, plus the most useful Nebula ball effects parameters of her gold, aura, and fourth skill exceptionally positively. This fact allows you to build an even more ambiguous defense in Grand Arena and CW, keeping free a bunch of Georgian and Faceless, as well as a Fafnir team if available. Of course, against very aggressive attacking formations, Cat does not stand up, and putting it in the second position, closing with a stronger tank, is impractical, because in this case we will most likely sacrifice damage and let the attacking team accelerate. But by the way, in Fafnir team itself, using Julius as the second tank on the second position justifies itself because the resetting of negative effects, as well as an extra chance of crit, and even more so the acceleration of 10 or 20% does not hurt. Julius is also very harmonious with Sebastian because of his barrier, and where Sebastian is, there are the same true crit heroes. As mentioned earlier, even complex protective teams with Amira and Helios are not terrible for compositions with Cat, so you can easily add a Jet there and thereby reveal in full glory, for example, the same Ginger with Isaac. By the way, such a variation with Orion also takes place against the same physics, and some mages, even though we lose Nebula Ball, Judge reliably covers it with his shield. In general, the introduction of Julius will provoke appearance of teams with elves, in particular from Mushy and Shroom, and chaotic ones will also become more relevant due to their huge, growing damage during the battle. The trend of improving engineers will definitely continue, as after rebalance of same Astrid, we should expect Fox and Daredevil to improve so that they can compete in utility with the same Ginger. And if we talk about Path of Progress now as a full-fledged faction, then we can confidently say that with the introduction of Julius, it has transformed and will firmly establish itself in the meta as a reliable means against the fight against the same undead, mystics, or deers. So if you are experiencing big problems with Phobos, Iris, and Satori, then Julius shields that reset negative effects will definitely come in handy. Only then will it be very desirable to pump at least Isaac, Judge, and Nebula so that Cat begins to reveal his potential in this direction. I hope this information received can be useful to you. In any case, I will not refuse your subscription and like. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you soon.